Hello, and welcome to Living with Your Dog. I'm Charlotte Peltz, a certified animal behavior consultant. I would like you to be able to contact me with any questions you may have regarding particularly behavior issues, but I can address other things as well. One of my favorites is nutrition. So we're here to help you, and Nate will tell you how to get your questions to us.
To get your questions to us, just email livingwithyourdog@gmail.com. That's livingwithyourdog@gmail.com. And also, you can find Living with Your Dog on Facebook. Living with your dog, living with your dog, living with your dog with Charlotte.
Hi, welcome to Living with Your Dog. I'm Charlotte Peltz, certified dog behavior consultant. Many regular listeners know that I am a huge fan of Dr. Patricia McConnell. Her book, The Other End of the Leash, is something that I wish every dog owner had a copy of and read it, and maybe reread it and read it again. She's a certified applied animal behaviorist, and that's one of the two educated people that can declare being behaviorists, and the other is a veterinarian that has gone on to more years of school to become a behaviorist. The rest of us are behavior consultants, and it's not illegal to say you're a behaviorist. And anybody can hang out a shingle and say they're a behaviorist or a trainer. There are no laws, unfortunately. But anyhow, she's wonderful. And here, this one is from this month. The power of silence, or more or less, is more. Okay. Several months ago, she says, Skip began leaping up and down in front of me while we walked up the hill in anticipation of getting the toy that he and Maggie played tug games with. It was cute for a few weeks and then became irritating. I'm trying to walk forward up a steep hill, and he's pogoing in front of me, impeding my progress. I tried ignoring it, but he kept it up, no doubt because eventually he would get reinforced when he got the toy when we arrived at the top of the hill. So what to do to stop the behavior? I could teach an incompatible behavior, one of my favorite ways to deal with this kind of situation. However, I took another approach which worked so well and so fast, I had to spend some energy getting the behavior back over the last few weeks so I could video it for you, which of course now I can't. Best laid plans and all that. I could wait until Maggie is no longer lame, but I don't know when that will be. So I'll just describe it in hopes that that will be enough. I should mention before going any further that this method works wonderfully for some dogs in some contexts, some of the time. But when it does, oh, it's so refreshing. What I did was nothing. Nope. No, wait, that's not true. Not nothing at all, but certainly less, in quotes, at least from the perspective of Skip. What Skip wanted was to keep walking up to the top of the hill where he and Maggie would get the tug toy and begin to play one of their favorite games. But instead, I did two other things. First, I stopped and stood still, which is both doing something and doing nothing, depending on your perspective. Second, I turned my head and body away from Skip, crossed my arms, and gave him nothing to engage with. As soon as he stopped bouncing and took his attention off of me, perhaps sniffing walking up the hill or picking up a stick on the ground, I turned and began walking forward again. It took me about 5 repeats to get us all up the hill on day 1. Granted, it took some time and patience, but it was easy to do as long as I was patient. Day 2 of this was no different. It probably doubled the amount of time it took to get to the top of the hill, maybe add on 4 to 5 minutes. But on day 3, I had to do it only 2 times. And on day 4, the behavior was completely extinguished. Why then, you might ask, did I go out this morning to get a video of the behavior since I just said it was extinguished? Because that was several months ago. And lately I've been trying to get it back so that I could get a video of him doing it for this week's post. But now Maggie is lame and something is weird about my YouTube account anyway. So the goddesses are just not going to let me get you a video. But I've been wanting to write about this for months. So I'm just going to forge ahead by writing about it now. So what happened? In one sense, I very much did a lot when I stopped walking up the hill while Skip bounced like a cocaine-crazed kangaroo. I love her. I love her. I love her. I switched from walking forward to standing still. I crossed my arms and turned away. In another sense, I did less. I withdrew attention, stopped moving, said nothing. I thought of this when I recently saw a good trainer chirping incessantly to his dog, asking the dog over and over again to do X in order to prevent the dog from doing Y. I wanted to suggest to him that he simply stop, stand still, and be silent for a moment, but it wasn't my place to interfere. Recently, I talked to a kiss ass dog trainer whose dog was hyper reactive on walks. This is not a normal dog, truly brilliant, athletically gifted, and much too easily aroused. I suggested she just try stopping and going silent when the dog began barking and lunging. No cues to do anything else, no backing up, no prompt to look at a distraction on cue. All of these methods can be extremely useful in many cases. She'd tried them all. I said, what might happen if you just went still and silent? It helped. Magic? No, but it helped substantially. I'd love to have a conversation with you about the power of stillness and silence. I'd write more. My mind is buzzing right now, but it hurts to type, so I'm going to stop. Note, just hypothetically, if you take doxycycline after a deer tick bite to prevent Lyme disease and take it on an empty stomach, be prepared for your body to attempt to expel not just the contents of your stomach, but your actual stomach, and to slip, fall, and slam your wrist on a sharp grate edge while dashing to the bathroom. Just hypothetically, of course.
Oh my
What,
goodness.
what I can do, however, is repeat parts of a post I wrote titled Less is More in November of 2016. This time about not overwhelming clients in private sessions or classes with too much information. Here's part of it. This is from November 2016. When I first started seeing clients, I felt a need to send them home with as much information as I possibly could. How could I deprive them all the things that they could do to help their dogs? Because I knew that people only remember a relatively small percentage of what they hear in one appointment. I wrote a number of booklets over the years for them to take home and read. The Cautious Canine, Feisty Fido, and I'll Be Home Soon, for example, were all written as supplements to the information I covered in my early sessions with clients. But there was always so much more. Dogs who were reactive to other dogs on leash were confused by the owner's lack of consistent cues. Fearful dogs needed more than classical and operant conditioning when strangers arrived. They needed to live in a family that provided a sense of security, not one of dominance. Dogs with separation anxiety had virtually no idea what the owners meant when they said sit, and that added to their general anxiety. So much to teach and so little time. I would do my best to explain that we needed to work together more than one time, sending them home with booklets and handouts, appropriate toys, and our training tools. However, the years went on, I began to hone down what we covered in the first appointment. Just doing a good intake interview is tiring for everyone. It often took a half hour or even longer, and after that, one could see the humans in my office were already getting tired. I had asked them, after all, no small number of questions that took a lot of thought to answer, like when did the problem first begin? Just even an inkling of it? What exactly did you do in the first 30 seconds after the first bite 2 years ago? What would success look like to you? Thinking through the history of a behavior problem takes a lot of mental energy, and it doesn't leave a lot left for learning new things. That is why many practitioners ask people to fill out a questionnaire before the appointment. There's a lot of value in that, and I too sent out forms and asked people some general questions on it. But I prefer asking many of the questions in person. First of all, the interchange between us often led to discoveries. In quotes, oh, that's right, I forgot. He didn't start growling at dogs in the dog park until after that big brown dog slammed into him at the front gate. End of quote. In addition, it gave me lots of time to observe the dog's behavior and the relationship between the dog and his owner. Did the ginger, the golden, obsessively sniff the carpet for an entire 20 minutes before settling down? Did Marco, the mastiff, avoid looking at his owner's faces? There's a lot to learn about a dog and his relationship to his owners, and vice versa, in an unstructured new environment, and I never wanted to lose that opportunity. That is why I never wanted to rush the intake interviews and why I settled on going over just a few things for our first appointment. Usually it boiled down to sending them home with one, practical solutions for dealing with the problem for the next 2 weeks, often management, not cure. Two, a handout or booklet explaining how to treat the problem. I would ask them to read it before our next appointment, but not necessarily begin working on it until we met up again and I could go over it in person. And perhaps more importantly, three, a cue practiced in the office that gave the owners the feeling that they really could influence their dog's behavior. It always was based on positive reinforcement, and it always was something I knew I could teach quickly. I, I think I think these things together because I've talked about them before, but not only do we sometimes chatter too much to our dogs, but because there is power in stillness and silence. Please don't be silent, however, in your comments. I'm truly looking forward to your thoughts. Have you ever tried just going still and silent among your dogs? The results? And she does welcome feedback. So you can go to her blog, her website, and this is Dr. Patricia McConnell, and you can check and you can become. She doesn't overload your email inbox that with stuff that's coming in every single day. Very worthwhile to receive from her. Whatever she says is golden, golden.
And actually, a little too much information on part of that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Have you ever responded to her? I'm
I think
wondering
I
how,
have.
I'm wondering how fast she gets back to people, or if she
I
does.
don't know. I don't remember. Um, I'm pretty sure that I have commented in some fashion or another a couple of times. Not a lot. It's only been a few times, but it's definitely it's a blog that I highly recommend. Let's put it that way.
And is it called The Other End of the Leash?
That's the name of her book, and I think if you just check for Patricia McConnell, certified, just
Just
Patricia
type
McConnell.
Patricia
Yeah,
McConnell blog, you'll find it. Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna find it.
Okay, and this is again, this is another tactic that we can do as dog owners that we don't often think about. I mean, like she said, I see people yelling at their dogs all the time. Would you just sit down? Just sit down. Please sit down. You
Right,
know how to sit down. Instead, just do nothing. and,
right,
it,
right.
and it's so simple, but we, like I said, we often don't think about it.
Well, part of the problem is we are verbal. We are people that do a lot of talking,
Also,
and dogs are body language creatures. They they present more information through their bodies than they do vocally. Yes, they vocalize, they bark, they whine, they cry, but their primary means of communication is with body language, that how they stand, the way they wag their tail, how they hold the commissures of their mouth, if they're standing up very tall and straight, leaning forward, leaning backward. All of these things are information. And incidentally, for breeds that still continue to amputate parts of ears and tails, they're removing important parts of the ways that they communicate with one another.
I never
So,
thought about that.
sure. So, for example, Dobermans that have their ears standing straight up look like they're on alert the entire time. They look like they're ready to aggress right now,
Really? Yeah.
as compared to when the ears are down. And the lack of a tail, which of course is also useful for balance, um, the the type of wagging, uh, and I see a little dog occasionally, and the whole rear end is just going around and around and around and around, and the tail is just going in circles and circles and circles. And there's no question but what she's delighted to see me. This is, you couldn't doubt it for a moment. Everything is saying, yes, come over, I want to say hello to you. Whereas there are dogs that are going to wag low, probably suggests they're not real comfortable. Real high, they may be saying, I wouldn't advise you come any closer, folks. Keep your distance from me. And when they don't have a tail, they lack the ability to give you that important information. So
That is huge. Now, I've never liked the amputation just because, in my opinion, it's cruel, but
right,
it's like sewing a person's mouth shut.
sure, yeah,
That's
yeah,
that
that,
makes
that,
so
that
much sense.
absolutely, and
Wow.
it's not tolerated much in, I think, all of Europe. It's frowned upon to do any surgeries that are not the result of a necessity for health. And
Right.
these are not, these are breed um, preferences
Just for
based
looks.
on just for looks, right?
Just to
And
please
so,
the human.
right, absolutely,
or
for
the
sure.
or the human's friend or something like that.
Right, right. Yeah,
Wow.
that there's that. But it's very sad. And again, for balance, that the dogs that are superstars in agility, like border collies, and they top the list, I can assure you they use those tails. They really do. Now, the Australian Shepherd's the breed of my daughter. She's very successful with it, but they always are outrun by the border collies, no question about it. I'm not saying that the lack of tail is the only reason for that. They're structured differently. They have different kinds of personalities, but that's another element that's involved.
Okay,
Okay.
so I got a couple questions for you on this Patricia McConnell power of silence. Um, it goes to show another one of your talking points that you always like to say is teach the dog what to do.
Right.
And in my opinion, that's what you're doing by doing nothing. Well, you're doing something, as Patricia McConnell says, you're doing
Yeah.
something, but what you're doing is nothing. And
Exactly.
and what that does is that forces the dog to think and figure out what you're trying to accomplish. Not
I'm
only
not sure
that,
forces. It gives the dog the
forces
opportunity.
opportunity. That very good call. Good call on that one. Yes. It gives them the opportunity to think and to figure out and to learn the behavior that you were trying to get at. And one of the things that I wrote down, which I thought was really important, is that we need to create a sense of security for our dogs and not dominance, because
Yeah.
as we've discussed, when we're dominant or yelling or something like that to our dogs, they are not having that opportunity to figure it out for themselves. They are just
Exactly.
obeying,
Yeah. Exactly.
and
Right.
that doesn't really instill the behavior in their psyche, and so that they can perform the behavior again.
When they problem solve, the behavior stays with them much better, much longer, much more efficiently than if it's force-based training. And there was a study recently that I read about where dogs that had been trained with positive reinforcement methods and then were rehomed and hadn't had anybody working with them for years, remembered all of those exercises promptly. The dogs that had been force-based, they were punished for not doing the right thing, although they hadn't been taught what the right thing to do was,
Mm.
they had to start all over again.
That's
So if you're not
proof.
there to punish, it's not going to happen. For example, if you're not there to punish your dog for getting into the garbage can, the dog is going to get into the garbage can when you're not there because there's no punishment when you're not there. So you have to be there to do it. The dog knows if you're not there, it's not going to work. You can't set the clock back. When you punish them when you come home, in their brain, it has nothing to do with the fact that they got into the garbage can. That's not the way the brain works. And this has been done with trainers that I've never gone this far, but so here's the story. The trainer gets a client, and the client says, I've done everything. They always say, I've done everything. I've done everything to stop the dog from chewing up the magazine and the newspapers. She always does it, no matter what. And she knows she did the wrong thing. She is clearly aware that she did the wrong thing. And the trainer says, really? Absolutely. There's no question about it. So the trainer says, okay, leave the room. The woman leaves the room. The trainer tears up the newspaper. The woman comes in and the dog is looking there. You see, she knows she did that. The dog is associating the person's behavior with fear and anxiety, Not that she tore up the paper. She had a ball tearing up the paper. It was fun. You cannot reverse that clock. You cannot take that back. So here's this woman who is saying, there, you see it? She knew she did the wrong thing. The dog didn't tear up the paper. The trainer did. And I think it's a really classic example of how we misread our dogs and what they're trying to tell us. You're right.
Right. Okay. A couple more questions for you. In that article by Patricia McConnell, she had mentioned incompatible behavior.
Right. So for example, if your dog jumps on you all the time, if you have the dog, you teach the dog to sit to greet you, it's an incompatible behavior.
The
It's
jumping
incompatible with
and the
jumping.
sitting.
Right. So it's an alternative behavior so that you're replacing the jumping with sitting, but they can't do both at the same time.
Okay. So in her story, she was walking and the dog's behavior was jumping and messing around in front of her while she's walking. And
Mhm.
so the incompatible behavior was them not doing that anymore.
Then not going forward.
Oh, right. Because she stopped.
She stopped. Sure.
Okay.
So the dog isn't jumping at her if she's not going forward because the dog's brain is saying, whoopee doo, whoopee doo, whoopee doo. The faster I get you at the top of the hill, the sooner I'm going to get to play with the toy. And dogs have the ability, it appears, we cannot ask them, that they think that's what gets her to the top of the hill. So if the jumping stops her, she's not getting to the top of the hill. So then the dog has to figure out that plan didn't work. Let's come up with plan B and see what that works. So it's an incompatible behavior. It isn't continuing. Her walking up the hill was reinforcing the jumping. The dog's plan is that's what gets her up the hill. And many years ago, when my children were young, I remember reading a book, had no clue what I was reading. I know now what it meant. The dog and the kids were running along the beach, and the dog was barking at the waves. And every time he barked at the wave, it went away. That was the dog's take. And we all laughed at that. Ha ha ha. Well, we know that that's what the dog was thinking. Barked at the wave and it went away. The same thing holds true in a regular life. The dog barks at the FedEx man and he leaves. So a superstar dog barks at the FedEx man to make him go away. And I keep telling her, he's bringing things. He's not taking things away. He's not stealing from us. He's bringing his treasures that could be for you.
But she just still doesn't get it, huh?
No, she still doesn't get it. But she is better, actually, because see, I'm not here all the time. I'm here a lot, but I go to the gym. I'm gone for a few hours at a time, and there could be a delivery that she gets reinforced. But when I'm here, and incidentally, she wants out, I give her treats so that she thinks that the FedEx man brings her treats. Let her out.
All right. Charlotte is letting her little dog Angie out.
Hi, on what side?
I will remind you, listeners, that you can send us an email with your questions at any time. Our email is the name of the show, livingwithyourdog@gmail.com. All one word, livingwithyourdog@gmail.com. Send us an email. We want to hear from you. Instead of me asking
So
questions
now
to
when I'm
Charlotte all the time,
here,
you can ask
when
them.
I'm here and she sees the FedEx man, she looks at me for her treat. Well, that's a big improvement. I like that.
All right, one more question. It was mentioned the Kiss Ask Trainer. What is that?
The kick ass?
Was that what it was? I wrote down Kiss Ask.
Kick ass.
Kick Ass Trainer.
Right.
Okay, what is the Kick Ass Trainer?
Well, she's referring to somebody that it's the top of the line.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a type of training.
No. That's the top of the line. You don't get any better than kick ass.
I'm a professional kick ass trainer.
There you go.
I teach you how to kick ass. I might have to bleep that out. I'm not sure about the radio stations.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. So yeah, that's doing nothing. I've seen that. I think my parents did that to me too every once in a while.
They were pretty smart. Yeah.
Worked on this dog.
All right.
Living with your dog, living with your dog, living with your dog with Charlotte.
Okay. There have been some issues with taurine deficiency, maybe associated with the grain-free dog foods. And I have something here about taurine that actually it hasn't been proved that the grain-free foods caused any of the dilated cardiomyopathy. That was an unfortunate false alarm that showed up. The dogs don't need to be switched from grains to grain-free. What people don't seem to understand is that it's carbohydrates, one form or another. So there's not a problem with the grains that's going to be solved with the lentils, and maybe the peas and lentils have been causing some problems. But my whole point is get them off their carbs. But anyhow, this is about taurine supplement and dogs, how taurine needs differ in dogs and cats. A cat's diet must be supplemented with taurine because their bodies have a limited ability to convert methionine and cysteine to taurine. They also lose taurine through the secretion of bile acids, and they require daily dietary taurine to stay healthy. So it's essential that this amino acid is included in their diet. Research has found that if a cat does not get taurine for 6 weeks, he may develop an enlarged heart. After a long-term deficiency, retinal degeneration can occur and may even lead to permanent blindness.
Wow.
So, and this was apparently not that many years ago, it was discovered that there was a taurine deficiency in some of the commercial feeds, and it was reversed. Dogs, unlike cats, have the ability to synthesize taurine from methionine and cysteine. However, as we've learned over time, especially with all the news about dilated cardiomyopathy in some breeds, even though they have the ability to synthesize taurine, some dogs need more taurine in their diets, either through a supplement or through the addition of certain whole foods, including organ meats like heart and liver, muscle meat like turkey, dark meat, beef, lamb. Who can afford lamb for themselves with their dogs? And seafood, krill, sardines, salmon, whitefish. For something really simple, add canned sardines backed in spring water to your dog or cat's diet. Goat's milk provides a little boost of taurine as well. Have fun with taurine topper, and there's some recipes here. But nori is another good source of taurine. Nori is the sea vegetable that contains a significant amount of taurine. It's also rich in protein, vitamins A, B, and C, minerals such as magnesium and potassium and arginine, another amino acid typically found in animal protein. Additional amino acids found in nori include alanine and glutamic acid to support the gastrointestinal tract and aid in the digestive process. Nori sheets are low in sodium but boost high levels of dietary fiber. Try spreading nori sheets on a cookie sheet covered with parchment paper. Bake them in a preheated 300-degree oven for 5 to 10 minutes. Cool and sprinkle some on your animal's food before serving. It can also be dry, roasted on your stovetop for a crunchy treat. So that's a very simple thing to be able to add to your dog's regular diet. And the mention of sardines, I really strongly recommend those sardines. I was disappointed. My friend has been up to Costco a couple of times in the past couple of weeks, and their regular supply of sardines at a very good price have been unavailable. So I'm hoping they're going to get those back. They can be expensive in the local market, but it's
Okay.
go ahead.
How do you spell nori?
Nori.
Okay. And it sounds like it kind of like seaweed. It
Yeah.
comes in
Right.
sheets and you
Yeah.
want to bake it a
It's a
little
sea
bit.
vegetable, right? And you can bake it to get it really crunchy. I don't know
Is that
what the need
necessary?
is. It's pretty dry anyhow when it comes out of the sheet, but
Yeah, I
it
was
does
wondering
suggest.
if it needs to be heated in order to get rid of something or to make it better or
I don't know. It doesn't say
make it more
why.
appealing for the dog, maybe.
It's 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's
It's
not
dry
long.
rusted. I think it just makes it more crunchy. because it's
Okay.
used for making spring rolls and that sort of thing. So it's probably more flexible before it's dried out in the oven.
Ah,
I think that's probably the reason for it.
and this
Okay.
is to supplement taurine in our dog.
Right, right. And it's the dogs have the ability to synthesize it, but and cats don't. They have to have it in their food. But it's a good simple solution. And of course, I think sardines are wonderful. And guess what? She wants in.
Angie
I have
wants
a
to come in.
towel out here, a kitchen towel. This is what am I going to do today? I'm going to let the dog out. I'm going to let the dog in. I'm going to let the dog out. I'm going to let the dog in. Now she's coming in.
Oh, the life of a dog owner.
There she is. There's that kid. All right. Anytime. Okay. Can
Okay,
we move on?
I'd like to get back to cats. I was really shocked that cats will only last a few days without taurine, so they really need it. They can't produce it themselves like dogs do, so we need to supplement the cats as well. Can I use the nori or the sardines with cats?
Certainly, but it's if they don't get taurine for 6 weeks,
Oh,
they
six
may
weeks.
develop an enlarged heart. That I mean, that's
Okay.
a huge impact, really huge. Let's be serious. So they need it daily. They need it daily,
And
but
you said,
it would take 6 weeks before you'd see the damage.
and is that an ingredient that's often put into the cat food?
Yes, yeah, that has been determined as um, an important, vital ingredient to be included. Yes,
Do you know if there's such a thing as the dogs and cats getting too much taurine?
I have no idea. I don't know about that.
Okay, because I'd hate to be giving supplements when it's already in the food,
For
and
the
then they
cats,
have an
if you're giving
excess.
the cats commercial food, it's going to have the adequate amount of taurine in there. If you're preparing food at home, then
Ah,
you probably need to investigate a properly balanced diet for cats that makes certain that taurine is included. And sardines, that's one way to do that. I can't, pretty hard to imagine a cat refusing some sardines, but they could do. And cats, cats are very special. They're what they learn in the first few weeks of their lives has an incredible impact on how they treat the world. And so when these vets recommend that you wean them to kibble, it's like, excuse me, that's crazy. They wean them to kibble, really? But it's so addictive. It's really addictive for cats, particularly, much more so than for dogs. And even changing the ingredients list is enough for cats to say, no, I'm not going to eat it. And for dogs, you can say, okay, you're gonna be hungry for a few days. We can't do that with cats. Their systems break down really fast if they don't eat something. So it takes a lot of persistency, a lot of carefulness, a lot of patience to get cats to be switched. For for cats that live an indoor outdoor life, it's going to be a lot easier, probably because the chances are they are out there hunting. Now, I'm not recommending having your cat turned loose because they kill a lot of birds and they die a lot from car accidents and other problems. And if you're out in the country and your cat's small, your cat could disappear thanks to a hawk or something, a big bird take it off. So I think they should be restricted. I think the ideal thing is that they do have a completely enclosed outdoor yard so that they can enjoy the outdoors, but they can do no damage and they are not being harmed or at risk. So, yeah, but if you're preparing at home, again, you've got to work on getting the balance. The taurine is important. All right.
all right.
Okay. And how about ways to fail at training a recall? And this is from the Whole Dog Journal. Okay, let's consider a few common training mistakes when training a recall cue. That's getting your dog to come when called. Recall is a learned behavior just like anything else you teach your dog. It's not hard to teach and it's not hard to train, but you do have to do the work. Unfortunately, dogs don't come with an English software package installed, so it's up to us to teach them the behavior, then add the cue, and then practice the recall so that the dog truly learns the behavior. Now, what's important about this is it's the reverse of the way things used to be taught. When you were teaching a dog to sit, You yanked up on a choke chain and you pushed down on the rear end and you said, sit. Here, it's you get the behavior and then you put a word with it. And that's very important. And it's a cue, it's not a command. Okay, practice should take place through all 4 stages of learning: acquisition, fluency, generalization, and maintenance. First, the dog has to begin to acquire the skill of returning to you. Then you continue to practice so that the behavior is fluent and is occurring with regularity. Next, generalize the behavior of coming to you in a variety of places and settings, always beginning in a low distraction environment, and as your dog makes progress, moving to a slightly more distracting environment. Do all of this before ever practicing in a highly distracting environment, such as off-leash play with other dogs. Eventually, you reach the maintenance phase of learning where you continue to practice recall so that the behavior stays solid. Now, here's a common scenario. People train their dog to come when they say come, but almost as soon as that is accomplished, they begin using the word very casually and taking the formerly much sought after behavior for granted and failing to even acknowledge, much less reward it. As an example, say you use the word come to call your dog when she's outside enjoying herself. She returns to you the first time you called because you're nice to her and you feed her. There's a lot of reinforcement history between the two of you, but then you bring her inside, you pick up your car keys and you go to work. From all your dog's perspective, you just have taken the good stuff away, the outdoors with all those awesome smells, and ignored her by locking her inside and going to work. In dog training, taking the good stuff away constitutes punishment, and punishment makes the behavior of coming to you less likely. If there's one sure way to ensure your dog never comes back to you, it's yelling or screaming at her, or heaven forbid, hitting your dog when she doesn't come back to you. If you do this, it cements in your dog's brain that you're unpredictable and the behavior you cherish and want so much is very likely to not happen again. And for more information about the Rocket Recall Cue, download the ebook, The Recall from the Whole Dog Journal. So it's something that's very, very important to continue with reinforcement. Now, you may not be doing it as wholeheartedly, as enthusiastically, with as many reinforcement rewards for doing it as you did during the training process. But it's very important to remember that you want your dogs playing the lottery. Unlike a Coke machine where you want the Coke to come out every single time you put in your quarter, you want them playing the slot machine after the behavior has been well trained, when you're like at the 85 percentile bracket of success for a given environment, a given area of distractions. Then you're going to start alternating what your reinforcement is. So if it's been steak, you may find that it's going to be chicken. It may be that you're going to say, what a good dog. You may go for a walk. You may give a belly rub. You may do something that's different from what was being done before, so that there is some reinforcement, but you're going to be minimizing it and reducing it to other types of reinforcement. Another thing, when you're working on getting a dog to come when called, you never, like this article points out, you never want to use that word if something the dog doesn't like follows it, like coming in after playing outside and then you're going to work. The dogs are at the dog park, and I'm not recommending dog parks, but if that's where you go and the dogs are playing together and you call the dog to you, the very best thing you can do on a regular basis is give the dog a pat and a scratch and a treat and say, go play again, so that you have a bank account of reinforcing the dog for coming by letting the dog go back and do what the dog wants to do. And when it is time to attach the leash and leave, you've got a bank account that allows you to get away with it. Another thing, when you're practicing and teaching your dogs to come, whether they're new to the family, they're puppies, you're only going to use the word when you're sure it's going to happen. So for example, mealtime, big deal. Dog is in the other room, and make sure that your friend is holding the dog steady so that you can rattle the food dish. The dog will say, oh, I'm going to go to the kitchen. And you're going to say, come, boxer, come. And the dog comes running and gets dinner. Wow. Is that cool? So you've got this powerful strong connection. It's not always going to be associated with dinner, but you're not going to call the dog to you for a bath if your dog is like my dog. She does not like baths. She is not into baths. So I would not call her. So if your dog is outside and it is time for you to go to work and you've got to get her in, what do? You go get her. You don't say come. You go to her and bring her in. You don't poison the queue for situations where you can just go get the dog and bring the dog in the house and give her some treats and don't have her association with the word that you then leave. Yes, you're going to leave, but she's not going to have an association that the come has been poisoned, that the come has been punished. So those are a few tips.
Okay, so should we then make another cue for the plays over, come inside, I gotta go to work,
I think you go to the dog and get the dog and bring her in.
rather than just making it another
Right.
cue and
Yeah.
another
Mhm.
behavior.
You could do something else. You could say over here, but whatever you say,
It's still
they
having the
are
dog come to you.
they're still dog. This dog is still coming and going to make a negative association with that phrase or that word. So
Or
go to
or
the dog.
or what we do physically, rather we could say come for one behavior, and we could say uh I don't know another word for come here. But if we do the same motion with our hands or something, the dog is only hearing the one command, not the difference.
Right, and that doesn't mean that
Or
the
see.
dog isn't likely to make an association with the leash. Seeing you come out the door at 8:05 in the morning and knows that okay, that means I'm going to be called inside. So you have to be practicing these things out of context. When I got
Oh.
Angie, I could not get near her outdoors with a leash in my hand. I could attach a leash to her collar in the house, but if she saw me with a leash outdoors, she wanted nothing to do with it. I don't know what the people who had her before me did to her,
Hmm.
but whatever it was, she was not going to come near me with a leash in my hand.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, on another note, so we're supposed to, when we're training our dogs, we're supposed to train the behavior and then give it the cue word.
exactly.
How do we train our dog to do something when we're not naming it? I mean,
Okay. So here it is. It's dinner time, and you're rattling the food dish, and the dog comes running. You can say come at that time. Dog's running, and here's the word come and associates it. All right. Um, I don't, we don't teach dogs to sit or to lie down or to stand. They come ready made with that. So when you see your dog ready to park her butt, you can give her a treat for that. When you see your dog lying down, you can toss treats. The dog gets up, the kitchen's closed. And pretty soon, when your dog pays attention to you, like when I lower my butt, there she is with goodies if she's around. I'm going to try and see if I've got her trained to do this. So you see the dog begin to lower her butt, and as the butt touches the ground, you say sit. Gradually, you can say it sooner when the haunches just bend a little bit, and begin to do it sooner and sooner, being careful of the distractions. So, and keep in mind that what you don't recognize as a distraction, your dog may. For example, Pat Miller, whom you know well at this point, she calls it the refrigerator syndrome.
right.
If you have taught your dog to sit in the kitchen and you ask her to sit in the living room and she doesn't do it, it's because there's no refrigerator. It's how what her take is on the environment, not what you think is going on.
Mm, her
And
take on
sometimes, for example, people will nod or they'll point
right.
for down. They'll point, lean forward, and they'll point. And I'll say, but your dog doesn't know the word. Oh, yes, look at her. She knows exactly what I'm saying. I said, okay, say down and don't point. Dog just looks at her. Now, dogs are body language creatures. So just tipping your head one way or another, bending
Yeah.
over, all of those things are signals that are important to the dog, whereas the word is not. And I am a big fan of teaching verbal and hand signal cues because there are times when one or the other is going to work or isn't going to work. For example, come, I've got a hand signal for come, but if the dog's running away from me, it's not going to do me any good to use my hand signal. If the dog is looking away from me, I can't use a hand signal for sit or down or come or stand or anything else. So it's worthwhile to have that. What people often do is they'll put the signal and the word together. And that's when the dog is paying attention to your body and not what you're saying, because they're just simply not verbal creatures. We are.
Is so does that confuse the dog then? Because we're
No, they're not
sending them.
confused. They're just paying attention to your hand signal.
Okay.
So if you want them to say to go down when you say down, you have to eliminate it. And for example, when I was living in Mexico, I had people that wanted their dogs to respond in Spanish as well as in English for certain cues, because they had a gardener or they had, a maid in the house or whatever, and they wanted them to have some communication. So when you're training a new cue, you put it before the existing cue, and it becomes something that they anticipate. So, for example, in English, I use the word down. In Spanish, I said échate. So when I wanted the dog to learn down in Spanish, I would say échate down. And after a few times, the dog anticipated, and I no longer had to say down following échate. And then I would practice down and échate, two separate different conditions, so that the dog had two cues for the same behavior.
Hmm. Okay.
It works.
It's just a matter of patience, really,
Right. Right.
and going through the steps.
And the other thing, of course, is consistently, again, because they're body language creatures, the gardener would be out there and wanting to rake the lawn or something and point to the dog, go over there, or whatever. And the dog would do that, not having been taught to go over there. But dogs follow our pointing finger. They are, unlike chimpanzees that are our closest genetic family member, they don't do that. But dogs have been following people around for thousands of years, and they've learned. And I do this right now with Angie. Uh, she has a course at dinner time. Okay, she has a course, and the ultimate course is an ice cube or two. And so I give the ice cube to her, and sometimes it bounces, and she's not sure where it went, because it's a linoleum floor, and I'll point, and she usually just follows my finger, and she goes and finds her ice cube. So it's really pretty cool. It's kind of fun.
That's an example of intelligence as far as I'm concerned.
It's observation. They've learned to communicate. They've learned to observe us and what that means. And we point. Um, Chimpanzees don't point, as I said. And so dogs have evolved. Dogs do what works. They do what works, and it works for them to have that assistance. There've been some studies, and I've seen some of these on YouTube, where a person is sitting down on the floor, and there are several cans sitting 8 or 10 feet in front of the person, and one of them has a tasty tidbit underneath it, and a dog comes into the room, and the dog will follow the person's eyes to the right container.
Oh wow.
I mean, hello? Not going so far as actually pointing to it, but turning the head, even just the eyes looking at it. That's how closely. And that's another thing when it comes to eyes. Don't try training your dog with your sunglasses on, please.
Why
They
is
can't
that?
see your eyes. They can't see your eyes, and they're reading them, because your eyes smile. You have, you squint. All of these things are things that they have observed over a period of thousands of years, and they translate it into information.
Wow. I'm pretty sure we've covered that before, but it never sunk in my head that
Yeah.
they are looking at your eyes. Not
Yeah, they're
only are
what?
they watching your body, because we've
Yeah.
talked a lot about that body language and what you do with your arms when you're giving a
Yeah.
cue or something like that, but your eyes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
It
makes
makes it.
sense. I mean, that makes so much sense. I mean, even as humans, when we want to connect with somebody, we take our shades off so that we can be eye to
Absolutely.
eye.
Yes. Right. And now, the eyes are so important with mask wearing. Yeah.
That's another good point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For sure.
Oh, that's true. Huh, I haven't thought about that. Wearing a mask while trying to train my dog.
And it doesn't seem to be much of a problem. I haven't read of anything serious. I think it's the importance of the eyes.
As you've said, they're not really listening to us, they're watching us.
Yeah. And there's so many other things going on, that we're not really conscious of unless we make it a point to carefully evaluate our behavior.
Yeah, that's huge. That is huge. We really need to be uh, paying attention to what we are doing with our bodies, our eyes,
Yeah.
our head, like you said, nodding the head or moving the head
Oh,
one way.
yeah. Oh,
We need to
yeah.
be paying attention to that and aware of what we're doing, what we're showing our dog while we're training it, because we could be giving it
Absolutely.
mixed signals, and and then you get that dog look that you get, the turned head.
Right.
The dog's going like, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah, for sure. For
And,
sure.
and one of the things that you can do, as we heard with our first topic today from Patricia McConnell, was do nothing.
Right.
Just just stand
Yeah.
there. Kind of I wrote down ignore. It's not really ignoring your dog, but it's allowing them the opportunity to figure out the correct behavior that you're looking for.
Yeah. You're not ignoring them because you're
Yeah,
looking for a change in the behavior that permits you, like in her case, to continue up the hill.
right.
So you're definitely observing your dog and the behavior. The dog does something other than bouncing up and down in front of you. And that's your cue to continue going up the hill.
And that was from Patricia McConnell and her blog. And you can find that by searching on the internet, Patricia McConnell blog. She wrote the book Other End of the Leash, which Charlotte suggests that you read once, twice,
At least, yes, for
thrice.
sure. Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great book. It really is. One of the things that I remember so well from the book is Franz de Waal, I think his name is. There are some photographs that are worth having the book just to see the photographs in this particular case. And it shows some chimpanzees walking, and they have their arm around one another. This is a primate thing. Then it shows some photographs of people with their dogs, their puppies and their dogs. And here's this little kid, a smile from one ear to the other, holding his dog, and the dog is going, like, "Get me out of here now. I don't want to be here. This is not nice." You can just see written all over them the expression that they don't do hugs very well. Hugging is not a canine thing. It is a challenge. A paw over the shoulder could get your dog's attention really quickly if your dog doesn't like that dog doing it. Sometimes in playing that happens, but a play bow happens before that so that the receiver of the paw over the shoulder knows we're playing, right? You remember I'm playing that. This doesn't count. But in general, that is not a canine acceptable behavior. It's not welcoming. So, yes, especially if you have a cute dog, a cuddly dog, a fluffy poodly dog, teach them to accept cuddles because people are likely to do it. If you have a Rottweiler, the chances are not likely that somebody is going to reach over and hug them. I'd still teach it. I remember once I had a Rottie, he was a heart dog, and I was giving a horseback riding lesson. I used to take him to work with me. And I looked out of the ring, and here was this toddler with her arms wrapped around Bernie's neck. And he was looking at me like, "You're going to help me, aren't you? Right? Aren't you going to help me?" And I went out and I peeled the child off, and I did exercise restraint and what I said to the parent.
I like how you put it. I practiced restraint when I
Yes,
addressed her parents.
yes,
All right, the next thing we discussed was taurine deficiency in our cats and dogs. Some of the supplements that you can use. Oh, we heard of a new one today. Nori, Nori. It's a sea vegetable. It comes in sheets. The author of this article, I didn't get that, but she said to bake it for about 5 to 10 minutes at 350. Some other things that you can give your dog are organ meats, seafood, canned sardines is a great one. And then we discussed ways to fail training a recall. That's when you recall your dog. So when you say come here or come, when you want your dog to come to you, there's many ways you can fail by doing that. Again, you need to pay attention to what you're doing, what you are doing with your body. The very important one, if you want the recall to work again and again, do not follow the recall with something that your dog does not like, because what you're essentially doing is calling your dog to you to do something it doesn't like.
And
Then why would it?
You're punishing the dog for doing it. That's what
For
you're
coming
doing.
to you, yeah. And then why would the dog come to you again? So
Probably won't.
keep that in mind. And that is from the Whole Dog Journal. And you can check out, looks like they wrote a piece.
It's an ebook, yeah.
There we go. It's an ebook. You can get the ebook, The Recall. And you can find that again on the Whole Dog Journal. Again, it's all on us, man. We got a lot of work to do. It's not just as easy as getting a dog and feeding it every day.
That's
we
right.
have a lot of work to do so that we can live a happy life with our dog.
There you go.
All right, Charlotte, before we head out, do you have any last words for us?
Yes. He is your friend, your partner, your defender, your dog. You are his life, his love, his leader. He will be yours, faithful and true to the last beat of his heart. You owe it to him to be worthy of such devotion. That was Roger Karras.
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
Living with your dog, living with your dog, living with your dog with Charlotte.
Isn't that cool?